time of year again. Baseball is back, spring training is going on in the Cactus League and the Grapefruit League. I'm Ryan Hood, and I'm here to break down the National League West for this upcoming season. So to start off, the toast of the division, the Los Angeles Dodgers came within one game of beating the Astros in the World Series for which would have been their first World Series title since 1988. This team is absolutely loaded with talent. They have a really strong young nucleus. A lot of their starters are still heading into their primes. Corey Seager is arguably one of the best players in baseball right now, an absolutely amazing hitter. Justin Turner is also anchoring that lineup. They do have some depth issues and possibly some position battles going on in the outfield right now during spring training. Guys like Jock Peterson, Yasiel Puig, Kike Hernandez, other guys vying for playing time, so it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. This team is also very stacked in its rotation. While they were looking to retain either Yu Darvish or find another low-cost option in free agency, this team still has a lot going for it in this rotation. Clayton Kershaw is the oldest member of their projected rotation right now, and while he does have some injury problems, when he is healthy, he's probably the best player in baseball. I don't see how that argument has changed during Kershaw's rise to stardom. Last year, the Diamondbacks and the Colorado Rockies. Starting with the Diamondbacks, they did not retain JD Martinez this offseason, which does leave a huge hole in the middle of their lineup for some power. Outside of Paul Goldschmidt, their lineup is kind of dicey. AJ Pollock still hasn't fully come back from an injury 2 years ago. He has not been playing at the same level. They did just trade for Steven Souza Jr., so that does add a little extra thump in their lineup. Souza hit about 30 home runs last year with the Tampa Bay Rays. This team is definitely still anchored by its starting rotation and its bullpen. Zach Greinke had a huge turnaround season last year, so it'll be really interesting to see how he moves forward and continues to be the pitcher the Diamondbacks paid an ungodly amount of money for. Robbie Ray showed last year that he could develop into a front of the rotation starter, and he is a very, very good left-handed complement to Zach Greinke, and they're a great 1-2 punch, arguably one of the best in the biz. So the Rockies did not make a lot of big moves this offseason after having a surprising run to the playoffs last year. They are anchored by a strong, young starting rotation led by perennial ace John Gray, who this season could make a jump into the Cy Young race. Very good young pitcher. Like what he's doing there in Colorado, even in that thin air, he still managed to pitch very well. They also have Chad Bettis, and then you should see guys like German Marquez, Kyle Freeland, Antonio Sanzatella, and Jeff Hoffman vying for those last few spots in the rotation. Those four guys were very good in their brief time in the majors last season, so it should be interesting to see how they can progress and help the Rockies move forward as a pitching-based team. I mean, obviously, they still have Nolan Arenado and DJ LeMahieu and Charlie Blackmon, who are three incredible hitters. Arenado and Blackmon are MVP candidates. So this team still does have a lot of firepower on offense. Moving on to the San Francisco Giants, who made the most moves out of any NL West team this offseason. They had their worst season in a long time last year, losing 98 games, the most in the National League. They obviously had issues with injuries. Madison Bumgarner missed an immense amount of time due to a dirt biking accident. Mark Melancon missed some games and was ineffective when he was healthy, so it should be interesting. This bullpen is still very lacking, but I do really like the moves they've been making on offense. They traded for Evan Longoria to fill up their void of third base options. They traded for Andrew McCutchen to bolster their outfield. They also signed Austin Jackson. So if this team if this lineup can turn it around like we know they can, like we saw them hit in 2015, plus guys like McCutchen and Longoria who have been very good for a very long time, this team should be able to hit. Buster Posey's still an MVP candidate, Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford, Joe Panik. This team does have some serious options at the plate, so if those guys can turn it around, this should be a very good lineup to help anchor this team. They'll need bounce-back years from Johnny Cueto and Jeff Samardzija as well, but this team does have a lot of potential while they are on the older side. And lastly, we have the San Diego Padres, who have a plethora of young talent. This team is making a lot of moves. They have a very good farm system. A lot of their guys still aren't ready. While their prospects will get some playing time this season, this team is still 2 or 3 years away from being serious contenders. They did add Chase Headley and Eric Hosmer in the offseason, so they are showing that they do want some veteran leadership on their team to lead their young guys to possibly do a playoff run in the next few years. This team just has to improve in the rotation. I don't see how it's possible that their rotation can anchor them for a whole 162-game schedule and have them remain competitive. So it should be interesting to see how the Padres can possibly move to being more competitive as their prospects really start to develop. So to end this off, I'm going to go ahead and go with my predictions. I see this is probably one of the best divisions in baseball outside of the American League West. I see a serious possibility of this team sending at least one, if not two teams to the wild card game. I think the Dodgers are going to win the division. I think the Giants and the Rockies have a serious chance at shooting for the wild card, but they will be competing with other tough non-division leaders, such as teams like the Chicago Cubs, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Milwaukee Brewers, other teams that could be pushing for this wild card spot as well.